In front of them stood another sword, gleaming in the dim light. She remarked on how he was still sleeping, unaware of the events unfolding around him. Cyan mused aloud that the sword would have to wait 20 years for its rightful owner. Kairam, puzzled, pointed out that Cyan spoke as if he knew the future. Gripping his sword, Cyan adopted a combat stance. Without warning, he swiftly severed the handle of the sword before them. Kairam, taken aback, questioned his intentions. With a devilish grin, Cyan hinted that this might make future events more interesting. As the sun set, the carriage moved away from the castle, eventually slowing to a stop. Cyan, wearing a shield on his chest, reflected on how quickly time had passed. He greeted the Duke, who informed him that this would be the last time he would ask the question. The Duke inquired if Cyan was still resolved to go to the battlefront, offering him a chance to back out. Cyan, confident, affirmed his determination, stating that his heart was already set on the battlefront. The Duke then instructed Yulkin to reveal what he had. Holding a scroll, Yulkin unrolled it, and a fiery creature with sharp claws appeared, a hellhound, a demonic beast from the Lemia Valley. Cyan recognized the effort his father and the knights must have put into preparing this trial. The knights, ready to intervene if necessary, placed their hands on their swords. The Duke emphasized that Cyan was responsible for his actions and urged him to prove his resolve by passing the trial. Yulkin, gripping his sword tightly, remembered when Cyan had invited him for a duel. Cyan had explained that with only 3 days left until his promise to his father was due, he needed to experience a real fight. He asked Yulkin to help him, but Yulkin suggested he duel with someone his own age, like the young Master Krantz. Cyan explained that Krantz avoided him, leaving him no other choice. Reluctantly, Yulkin agreed but insisted he would only use his sword sheath and focus on defense, urging Cyan to attack freely. Cyan thanked him but made Yulkin promise not to tell the Duke about their duel, emphasizing it as an order. The seriousness in Cyan's expression puzzled Yulkin. Cyan attacked, and though Yulkin blocked it, he was astonished by the weight of the blow, especially from a 10-year-old. Before he could recover, Cyan attacked again, moving with surprising speed and disappearing from Yulkin's sight. He wondered where Cyan had vanished, then sensed him behind. Just in time, he managed to defend. Cyan launched a series of relentless attacks, taking the duel very seriously. Our protagonist, giving his all, found every strike deflected by Yulkin. Accepting his current limits, he acknowledged that he couldn't yet defeat Yulkin and thanked him for the effort. Yulkin, breathing heavily, praised the young master. Inwardly, he marveled at how much Cyan had grown from the weak boy he once knew. In the present, Yulkin's confidence in Cyan's potential was reaffirmed. The hellhound moved swiftly, its focus locked on Cyan. As it charged, Cyan anticipated its attack, understanding that with his current strength, he needed to end the battle swiftly. The hellhound prepared for another strike, but Cyan, having already planned his next move, assumed a combat stance. As it lunged, he leapt into the air and drove his sword into its skull. The knights were astonished, and the Duke looked pleased. Cyan surveyed the fallen hellhound, noting the blood spilling from its neck. He mused that such blood could fill several bottles but knew collecting it now would seem strange. The Duke clapped, commending Cyan for his impressive display and confirmed they would see each other at the battlefront. Cyan thanked his father. Kairam, a small wisp of smoke on his shoulder, appeared. She demanded if he saw her as a kitchen knife, to which Cyan, unperturbed, replied, "Of course not. You're a demonic sword. Why would you ask that?" Kairam retorted, urging him to use her, lamenting that she needed blood to gain strength. She eyed the hellhound's corpse, tongue out, begging for just a taste. Cyan assured her that he would soon use her to the fullest, telling her to anticipate it eagerly. Kairam grumbled that he should have woken her then. Soon, an ogre emerged to the northwest. The Duke commanded the knights to set up a defensive line and eliminate the threat immediately, instructing them to leave no one alive. The knights, responding with a shout, began the restraint of salvation. A glowing yellow symbol appeared in the air, illuminating the surroundings. A magic circle formed beneath the ogres, ensnaring them with restraints that immobilized the monstrous creatures. The Duke gave the command, and the knights charged, slicing through the ogres with precision. The air filled with the roars of the dying ogres, but the knights remained steadfast, fulfilling their duty with bravery and skill. The ogres fell swiftly under their blades. Cyan, seated on his horse, observed the scene with a calm demeanor. Behind him, Emily clung to the saddle, trembling and tearful. She asked the young master, her voice shaking, why he insisted on coming to such a dangerous place. Despite her distress, Cyan felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him. The Duke approached and inquired how Cyan felt being on the front lines. Cyan confessed to feeling a bit nervous. The Duke nodded, sharing his wisdom. In a place like this, death could come at any moment. He advised Cyan to remain vigilant at all times. Cyan promised to keep that in mind, aware that unpredictability was a constant companion on the front lines. He understood the rhythm of life here, 3 to 4 battles a day, each with its own strategy and response plan. The knights, ever vigilant, formed a strong defense against the encroaching monsters. Cyan noted that his assigned group was stationed in the safest part of the camp, far from the front lines. The guards' discipline was impeccable, making it difficult for Cyan to find an opportunity to feed Karim. He resigned himself to waiting until dinner. Emily, still trembling, huddled under a blanket. She reminded Cyan of the Duke's warning: they never knew when or where they might die. Cyan, exasperated, asked why she didn't just leave if she was so afraid. Emily shot back, her voice loud and filled with frustration, pointing out that he couldn't manage without her. She made it clear that with monsters everywhere, she couldn't abandon him. With a sigh, she told him it was time to eat and instructed him to move. When Cyan inquired about the cake he had requested, Emily ignored him and left the tent. Cyan, holding back his irritation, wondered what would happen if he simply sent her away. Yet, he couldn't imagine doing so, despite how she treated him. Later that night, Cyan placed a doll that resembled him in his bed, covering it with a blanket to create the illusion that he was sleeping. Cyan adjusted his disguise, hoping it would be enough to avoid detection. Emily, still half asleep, asked if he was planning to exercise even here. He confirmed, asking if he had disturbed her. Her eyes remained closed as she praised his diligence, mentioning that the Duke would be proud of him. Donning his hood, Cyan informed her that he was heading out and requested her to handle things as usual. Before leaving the tent, he reiterated that she should act as if he were asleep. Aware of the heightened security on the front lines, Cyan sprinted away swiftly, knowing that his window of freedom was narrow. Utilizing his skill, Thick Fog, he invoked Fog's Descent, navigating through the camp based on memory until he reached an area teeming with monsters, an ideal setting to unleash Kairam. The demonic sword sensed the rich scent of blood, growing excited and urging Cyan to move quickly. Several hellhounds lunged at them, and Cyan, agreeing with Kairam, promised they would indulge. Together, they dispatched the monsters effortlessly, reveling in the ensuing bloodbath. Cyan activated Fog Sword, summoning Rushing Fog Storm, and cut through numerous creatures, moving like a whirlwind. After the skirmish, Cyan inserted a tube into a fallen monster's corpse, draining blood into a mug. Drinking the fresh blood, he looked almost deranged as he muttered, "This is the stuff." Kairam, too, felt invigorated, expressing her delight at feeling so refreshed. Cyan declared that they would continue training this way. Kairam questioned how long it would take to grow stronger by killing these creatures. Just then, more hellhounds approached from behind. Sensing them, Cyan reassured Kairam, promising a long night of hunting and plenty of monsters to slay. Kairam's excitement grew at the prospect of facing ogres, hellhounds, and giant crocodiles. Meanwhile, in the mountains, a carriage escorted by knights traveled cautiously. Inside, a girl with silver hair listened to a companion who worried about the dangers of the front lines. The woman suggested turning back, but the girl, revealing herself as the royal princess, insisted she was bound by duty to assist her father. Irritated, she reminded the woman not to treat her like a child and warned she would become angry if the topic was raised again. The woman acquiesced, then shifted the conversation, mentioning that the youngest son of the Vert family was also on the front lines. She noted that he was around the same age as the princess. Surprised, the princess asked why Duke Vert had brought his youngest son. Her attendant explained that the boy had volunteered. Suggesting that they might get along due to their similar ages, the attendant's idea was met with feigned disinterest from the princess, who then announced her intention to sleep. The attendant complied, but after a pause, the princess inquired about the boy's name. Cyan Vert, came the reply, which the princess repeated to herself, committing it to memory. The scene shifted to the princess's revealed face, marking her introduction as a significant character in the story. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.